and get started. Most everybody's in here. We're just going to work on, I'm going to go over graphing and I'm going to go over evaluating really fast. Your quizzes looked really good. There's a couple things that were, that I'm going to point out that they're not bad. There's just something that I really didn't teach. So I wanted you to know what to do. So I'm going to look at this again. This is your homework, the 3 through 8 that you did. I told you not to do the top because we didn't know how to do it. We learned evaluating yesterday. So I'm going to go back over that. And then I'm going to go over graphing, and then I'm going to talk about domain and range. And then you're going to take your quiz, and it's probably the easiest quiz you've ever had in this class so far. And I know we've only been here a week and a half, but it'll be the easiest one ever. All right. So we're going to start with evaluating, and I'm only going to do one. I'm only going to do this first one, and then we'll move on to the other ones. Okay. So we're going to start with f of 0. Which function do I pick for f of 0? The first one or the second one?
The first one.
And why the first one?
Because it's less than 1.
Yes.
0.
Yes, so this 0 is less than 1. So I'm going to plug in 0 squared minus 3. And some of you did fine on this, just your work was bad. So you plugged it into the right function, but you didn't simplify right, like if it had a negative or something like that. All right, so 0 squared is 0 minus 3 is negative 3. And that's it. Okay, nothing crazy, nothing hard. All right, somebody else, where would negative 2 fall, the first one or the second one?
The first one.
First one. So we would have negative 2 squared minus 3. I want to show you something on this. If you did this in your calculator, this is one of the mistakes that I'm seeing being made. You have to put it in like this, okay? That will give you the answer 1. If you don't, watch what happens. Does everybody see that? So your calculator does order of operations. Your first order of operations is parentheses. So it'll close that negative 2 inside of that parentheses and then square it. So negative 2 times 2. That's why the first one works and the second one doesn't. On this one, it does exponentials first, which is 4. And then it does the negative, which is negative 4 minus 3 makes negative 7. So anytime you do it in your calculator, make sure you put parentheses. So that's one of the things that I wanted to point out. So when we do put it in our calculator, we get 1. What about 2? Where does 2 go? First one or the second one?
Second one.
All right, thank you. So negative 2 times 2 plus 1. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Plus 1 is negative 3. What about 1?
Second one.
Why is it the second one?
It's equal to.
That's the equal to. So negative 2 times 1 plus 1 is negative 2 plus 1, which is negative 1. And then the very last one, negative 1, which function am I going to plug it into?
The first one.
The first one. So here's another one just the same. Negative 1 squared minus 3. That gives you positive 1 minus 3 is negative 2. If you do it in your calculator, put parentheses. Is there any questions on evaluating? Your evaluations looked good until you got fractions, and most of you did fine with it. The one, it was negative 4, looked like this. Hold on, I'm gonna try to find a piece of paper so I can show you. And this one is always missed, so it's not surprising. Negative x over 3 plus 4. And I'll move it in a minute so you can see it. This was your function, and you were plugging in negative 4. So when you put this in, it's going to look like this. So if you haven't done your quiz, I'm giving you an answer right here. You get positive 4/3 plus 4. And then if you guys want to put that in your calculator, that's fine. 4/3 plus 4. You could have gave me the decimal. You could have gave me the fraction. I didn't care. Some of you gave me 5 1/3. Some of you gave me 5.3, and some of you gave me 16/3. Those of you that gave me 8/3, you did not change this sign. Okay, so anybody that got 8/3 right there did not change that sign. So you got to be careful. All right, so I just wanted to point that one out. And then for graphing, I'm going to graph this one Just to remind you, how do I graph it? Come on, guys.
Boundary.
You put your boundary on
Negative
negative 2.
2. Perfect. All right, so the first one is less than negative 2, so make sure you graph it on the left. Then this one, 2x plus 3, is on the right. The problems that I saw on your quiz, the first one was some of you extended over the boundary line. Don't do that. Some of you didn't graph the section at all. Like you wrote it up here, but then you like didn't graph this side. So that's just like, I'm doing it and I made a quick mistake. That's not a big deal. All your other graphs look good. The other thing that I want to point out is if you have a boundary line, I think this was number 1. And the first one is open and it looks like this. And the second one is closed. You guys gave me something like this, okay? What happens when you have an open and a closed on the domain when we're doing domain and range?
It's closed.
Yeah, it cancels itself out. So you just fill that hole in and it doesn't even exist, okay? So the hole doesn't exist. So on number 1, you had an overlap of an open circle and a closed circle. You just close it in. So I didn't take any points off for that at all. I don't think. If I did, yell at me and let me know and I'll fix that for you because I hadn't taught that yet. So that's the one thing that I wanted to go over. If they overlap like that, close them in. All right, so if we're graphing 4, that's a horizontal line at 4, but is it open or closed on the boundary?
Open.
Open.
4 and a horizontal line. All right. If you didn't know that, again, you can go into your y equals and put that in. Let me clear out this stuff from stats. And you can see it right there. Or again, you can go to your table and we're only looking at -2 and lower, but they're all 4, so it doesn't matter. All right, then we'll do 2x plus 3. And we'll look at our, I didn't put that in right. We'll look at our graph or our table, I'm sorry. We're going to start at -2. My boundary is -2, -1. Should it be open or closed?
Closed.
Closed.
-2, -1, closed. And then you just graph your points that are bigger. -1, 1. Zero, 3. And then you can see your pattern up 2 over 1. And y'all did really good with your arrows yesterday on that quiz. So great job with that. All right. Any questions? All right. Did you have any questions like when you were going over the quiz, something you were like, not real sure about? All right. So what we're going to do now is domain and range. So that's what we're doing today. We've already done this. This is not a secret. It's a review. Tomorrow you will review, Friday you'll test. So be ready for that. Sorry, I'm trying to get a Post-it note. All right, so we're gonna look at this real fast. Coming from the left, we see an arrow, which means our domain goes to what?
Negative infinity.
Negative infinity. So stop right there, just negative infinity. As we move over, we have to stop at holes, but what do you notice about this hole? What else do you see?
Open.
I have an open. What else do you see?
A closed point.
Closed point. So they cancel each other out, so we don't stop. We keep going. And we see an arrow, which means it goes to infinity. Okay. There are specific directions on your test on how to put this in so that it grades it correctly. Some of you, when I did your quizzes the other day and you typed in like negative infinity to positive infinity, I put a space between them. You didn't, it counted it wrong, but I went back and gave you credit for it. So when we get to our test on Friday, don't use any spaces at all. And I wrote that in the directions, so don't stress out about it too much, okay? Let's do our range. We're gonna go from the bottom to the top. What's the lowest point we hit?
-1.
Open or closed?
Closed.
Closed.
How do I show that?
A bracket.
If you don't do the brackets versus parentheses, you're going to get it wrong, okay? So I don't want you to lose it just because you got the wrong bracket versus parentheses. We're going to move up until we see a hole, but what's special about this hole?
There's an
Open.
open circle.
Yeah, if anything else is touching this Post-it note, we just keep moving, okay? And guys, use a Post-it note or a note card or a piece of paper, it doesn't matter. And we go up and we get to an arrow, which means
Infinity.
Infinity.
perfect. All right, so I graphed this one the other day. Number 2, you guys got to see that. And I think that was yesterday that I graphed it. Our domain goes left to right. What do we see on the left?
Negative infinity.
Negative infinity. Make sure you use the negative there. You'll also get that wrong. We keep going and we see a hole, but what else do we see?
Solid hole, so
Solid.
it cancels it.
Yep, just keep moving. And then on the right, we see a what?
Infinity.
Infinity, another arrow. That's it. So that's your domain. Guys, you have these on your test. That's why I'm going over them. All right, coming from here on the bottom, what do you see?
Negative infinity.
As we move up, we see a hole and we don't see any other graph on this hole. So we do have to stop. Tell me what we stopped at.
1.
1.
It is not included. So we put a parenthesis. We put a U. We pick right back up where we left off. Pick right back up where we left off. As we keep going up, what do we see?
Infinity.
Infinity, thank you. And that is a parenthesis. That's it, guys. So make sure, again, if you were doing this on your test, no spaces at all. Parenthesis, negative, and then I told you to type the word infinity and I put it in the directions so you know how to spell it or whatever. A comma, no space, 1, parentheses, no space, U, no space, parenthesis, just like that. Okay, so I'm going to keep telling you that for the next couple days so that hopefully when you get there, it's a little bit easier for me to grade. Okay. All right.
No spaces at all.
Do what?
No spaces at all.
None at all. None at all. Squish it all together so that way it's all typed the same and everybody's doing the same exact thing. If you screw it up, like you literally screw it up, but you get the right answer, I go back and look at it. So it's not going to hurt anything for you for you to put a space in there. That's what I'm saying. Don't freak out. But if you'll do it like I say, then it'll grade it and go ahead and give you your score. Otherwise, it will give you the wrong score. Somebody emailed me and said, I think I got question 4 right, but it counted it wrong. That's all it was. It's because you either spelled it wrong or you put in a space or didn't put in a space, and I did. So it was typed differently than I did it. So I always go back and look. So don't stress out. All right, number 5, I've already graphed as well. You should have all these done. So this should not be a surprise to you. So if you've not got them done, you need to get on the ball. You're running behind. All right, so we're going to do domain. What do I see on the right? I mean,
Negative.
on the left. Negative infinity, yes. As we move, do I see any holes?
No.
So where does it go to?
Infinity.
Perfect. The range. We go from the bottom. What do we see?
Negative infinity.
As we go up, what do we see?
Infinity.
And that's it. That's it. Anytime you don't see anything broken or any holes, it's going to be negative to positive the whole time. Okay. Here we go. Trying to get this one on there. It's being crazy today, my stuff. All right. So if we look at this one, be careful on this one. As we go from the left, what do we see?
Negative infinity.
As we keep going, what happens on the boundary? Somebody else, what happens on the boundary? Guys, participate. Come on, you can do it.
There's 2
Those
open
2 open
holes.
circles.
Open, so we got to open our domain. We got to stop our domain. What is it on? What X value?
3.
Yeah, the boundary was at 3. It's not included. We put a U, pick back up at 3. Where does it go after that? even though this thing is pointing down, it keeps opening up as it points down. So again, anytime we see an arrow, it's going to go to infinity. Don't put negative infinity there because we're not talking about which way it goes up or down. We're talking about how far left or right. And on the right side, it's a positive infinity. So that one was a little bit difficult to look at. All right, let's look at our range. Remember, this arrow goes lower. Don't let it fool you. So arrow goes to where?
Negative infinity.
Negative infinity. As I come up, I see a hole, but what else do I see?
A solid point.
Yeah, it's touching this graph. As long as there's two touches, then it cancels out and we just keep moving on. Same thing up to here, we get a hole, but if you look over here, it touches the graph. So we're just going to keep moving on. How far up does it go?
Infinity.
Infinity.
So there you go. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop recording. I think you guys are doing okay.